Hey, you're listening to the She Did That podcast, where we highlight women of color who embody leadership, empowerment, and commitment to their community through entrepreneurship and social action. Here's where ferocity, fun, and facts all live in harmony. So stay tuned because, again, you're listening to the She Did That podcast. Welcome back to She Did That. Today we have our fabulous guest, Miss Whitney Dodds. And I would love for you to just kind of give us an opening about who you are and where you're coming from, and just a little bit about your background.
Sure. So I am Whitney Dodds. I am the founder of Wellness for the Culture. It's a mental health practice in Springfield, Massachusetts. My background is I went to AIC for my master's program, psychology. Again, my favorite school, UMass, Amherst. I also have a degree in psychology and a minor in women's studies. Kind of passionate about that one. I went to the High School of Commerce, if that does anything, before. What else do you want to know? I cater to Black and Brown community to offer, culturally competent mental health services to us and to kind of dismantle any stigma surrounding, why Black and Brown people don't want to seek treatment.
Awesome. Yes. If you could actually go into a little bit more about what Wellness of the Culture is, what it represents to you. And we'll start there and then we'll go back a little bit.
Got it. Wellness for the Culture is just that. It's what my hope for my community. So I remember when I was sitting down in like Starbucks and I'm like, what am I going to name it? And what is this going to mean to me? Because I don't want just, the practice of Whitney Dodds. Like, yeah, okay, but not enough. And then I said, okay, somebody said, so what do you want? And I'm like, well, I want my community, and I want us to know that, we can do both things, right? We can keep our culture and we can also aspire to more, or, take this psychology or mental health and like actually go to treatment and still keep our beliefs. So that's kind of what I was doing. And so when I was thinking, well, I first named myself Mental Health for the Culture. And I'm like, but there's so much around it. There's so much. When you think of mental health, you're thinking about like, there's your diet, there's your exercise, there's your physical health. There's so much. And so what I really wanted was wellness. And so my goal is to spread education, shed light on people that are healers and helpers in our community already, to take what we already have as the basis of our culture and then put a psychological twist to it. So what we already have and just expanding on it, not whitewashing it or anything else. Just, hey, we like the barbershop, cool. Let's learn some psychological techniques and tactics, and let's throw some of that in there so you can be efficient or effective helpers. I have an expo. I don't know if that's supposed to come later,
but bring it down.
All right, I have an expo every year. Due to COVID this year, wasn't allowed to have it, but that's where I bring the community people in. I need healers and helpers. They come in, we run the workshops, I make it affordable for people to come in, and so far it's been a success. So I hope to keep doing it in the future, but again, my mission is to educate people on mental health services.
Awesome. And where, we'll definitely revisit this at the end, but where can people find your, your services and all of those things? Like, is there a website?
Yeah. So I am on Instagram. I'm on Facebook at Wellness for the Culture. I have a website, wellnessfortheculture.com. I'm on Therapy for Black Girls. I'm on Psychology Today. So those are just some of the places you'll be able to find me. I'm on a couple of different directories for different schools. But yeah, those are the biggest places people find me. My website directly, Psychology Today, and Facebook.
Awesome. So let's kind of talk about the current state of mental health. And I know that it's one of those words that's being tossed around a lot and being talked about a lot. I kind of want to talk about the misconceptions about what the mental health sphere is about, like what mental health in general is about.
Okay. So the misconceptions, I don't necessarily know if they are. I think we have mistrust within our communities. And so you have to think about the foundation of psychology, where it's, again, I told you, it's founded by a bunch of white men. And some of the tests they ran were on Black people. And sometimes they weaponize mental health and diagnosis, medication, and use it against us. So I have a reason to be mistrustful. I'd have a reason to be apprehensive and seeking treatment. I think one of my first experiences, and I don't think I even talked about this much, but one of my first experiences, my first session ever, right out the gate, first job out of college, I was going with someone and they were training me. They were supposed to be going out to the place. And so we get to this place. And we knock on the door, and first thing, Black mom project. She looks right out and I'm like, hey, it's me. She sees the face, kind of like a lock-in. Now my person is not, right? So we get in, and she's like pulling open the notebook, and she's like, I don't even know why you guys are here. Like, what are you here for? And she was like, oh yeah, you were a referral. And so like, like DCF referred you. And she was like, DCF. And I was like, why would you do that? Because you don't understand. To understand why we are mistrustful, like you're in this woman's house and you don't even know why we're here.
Right.
You don't even have your background, and then you come with so much like the authority and the assumptions. And we went to the project, and your first assumption was we were referred by DCF. Now, what happened was we were actually referred by the doctors because the daughter had maybe needed medication. And so when the doctors prescribe medication, they want you to get some services also. So, but your first thing out of your mouth was DCF. And I think about all the ethical training we go through and biases, and it still didn't stop that one person from going into this community and saying DCF. And I'm thinking, that's it.
Right.
Everything she believes about therapy is actually validated, and she's done with us. So I don't know where we're going with that, but I think that answers kind of the question you were getting about the misconceptions. I think they're true, and it's up to us to be representative of a different path and going forward.
Yeah, definitely, because the stigma is so strong, especially in Black and brown communities, that one trigger word and that can just send somebody right out the door. Probably someone who probably could have benefited from it a lot.
Yep. Yeah. And so that taking that step back and then also believing in the community you serve. The reason why I started my own practice was because I went through the education system and then even through my training, and I'm like, ooh, you guys are just here? Like, because you have to do two years of training, but you don't really want to work here, and you don't really like the population you serve. You don't care about the population you serve. And when you get out of here, you're going to charge some astronomical price, and you're going to go right to whatever community, because somebody said to me straight off the bat, why are you going to have your practice in Springfield?
What?
Oh, well, because
they not believe that, Black and brown cities needed some help too?
I don't know if they didn't think they needed it. I think they don't think we value it. And I wasn't going to be successful, or I was going to make a business move. They were like, yeah, you're a little bleeding heart, but it's not a good business move.
Wow.
Yeah. One narrative. That's it.
One narrative. And imagine if you weren't so certain on that decision and you were to move. It's really important that you kind of stand your ground and be like, no, this is needed, this is wanted, and this is going to be a priority. And I'm going to be here to be able to give that to them.
Don't get me wrong. I have my struggles with some certain things and trying to reel people in and prioritize. Again, you were saying it's the culture, prioritize your mental health and all these different things about toxic people and all the cliche stuff that we like to put in memes and share all over the place, but then you forget that the toxic one is you, and that you ain't never did no work to stop being toxic, and a whole bunch of other things, right? You got trauma up and down, you recreating the trauma, bringing it on to your kids and your friends, and you ain't never even stepped in the therapy office, but you over there clicking the button on the meme, prioritize your mental health. Or I did self-care today, I shopped with your rent money, but we're not gonna go there.
But that's actually, you are really leading into my next question about, do you believe that there's a widespread miseducation about mental health and like mental health work? Because these words are being thrown around a lot, you see a lot of memes, see a lot of infographics, quick things for people to grab onto. But do you think that they're helpful, or do you think that it's really a good thing that these?
Yeah, so I think that pop culture, right, puts a twist on certain things, and we make it funny, catchy, and tangible, and sometimes that grabs people in. Sometimes you need that, right, to be relatable, so that people can, feel like they can go ahead and take the first step. Fine, whatever way to get you in the door is really good. And then, okay, here's the hard part, actually working through some stuff, and that's fine, whatever way you can get them. I think what happens is we don't validate the healing spaces we already have. And so can you just explain your question one more time for me? I knew I was going somewhere with this.
Do you believe that there's some miseducation out there, that like a lot of miseducation out there about mental health?
Yes. Okay. So I think when we talk about certain things that have been put into pop culture, again, let's take, for instance, mindfulness and meditation, and what people think mindfulness meditation is. And when you sit down and you think, okay, I have to just close my head out, then people immediately toss it out like, I can't sit there quietly and think for nothing, or I can't do this because what the TV presents and certain things. It's not the same. Mindfulness is being mindful of one thing. So if you can try to focus on something, meaning like whatever it is, if you're drinking a cup of coffee, being present in that moment, just drinking the coffee, not going forward to your whole day, not going backward to yesterday, just, wow, I'm here drinking coffee. Like, I'm here talking to you right now. I'm not going to late yesterday or anything else. So that's what mindfulness is, and and how it helps. It benefits people with anxiety a lot. Or even depression. So not going back and forth, but I think there is the way a lot of things are portrayed in the media.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. And the media has such a responsibility, but it's also become so much more accessible, which is a beautiful thing.
Right.
But it also can get a little tricky and a little messy sometimes.
Exactly.
But you know what? That's with everything. That's like, you get the good and bad with the media for everything.
I mean,
okay.
As they say, bad press is, right, any press is good press, right?
Right, exactly. So let me cycle back to wellness for the culture.
Yeah.
And also just your trajectory in life. Like, what brought you to, one, psychology, and then two, wellness for the culture?
Okay, so what brought me to psychology was, I always said I wanted to be a doctor, but I knew that I wanted to help people. I didn't necessarily know how. I knew that I would stick up for people, and so I almost went the direction of public policy, but it didn't quite work. I was trying to go into grassroots, and it just didn't quite work, because I think when you think, more like grassroots and public policy, it's more like there's either paperwork and I have too much empathy. There was too much, I wanted to get to the person, the individual level. And so I realized, okay, that's not it. And okay, what's with the doctor part? Okay, I'm infatuated with how people think, how they operate, why they do certain things. And so, okay, now, oh, well, duh, there's a therapist. I want to help people that way, because I think that if I can touch the individual, they can create the change on, the macro level. So that's how I ended up in psychology. Now, the realm of which I went into wellness for the culture, I think it came off of trauma, childhood trauma, no, I don't think, I know it came from childhood trauma and my inability and lack of knowledge to express what I was going through at any given moment, and the inability, the lack of words for other people to see, right, what I was going through, and to say, hey, go to, she needs therapy, or she needs to process certain things. And if not, the cycle of the trauma, I would have continued to perpetuate also. The idea, what happens in this house stays in this house, and we all sit across the room with all these traumas and then figure out why we're dysfunctional. Mm-hmm. And they're just like that. Well, no, they're not just like that, right? So I think once I realized, like, okay, if I would have gotten the help I needed, if somebody would have just pushed a little further, a little harder, I wouldn't have, the diagnosis of PTSD. I would have been stable. I would have processed that trauma right then and there, and I could have had a different future. Now, thank God I have this future and I'm here, but I think obviously there's a reason for it, and I'm here, to make sure that we get the same care when we need it.
Yes, definitely, because there's definitely disparity especially in our community, when like you said, what stays in this house, like whatever goes on in this house stays in this house. Mm-hmm. And a lot of our people are silenced, and then we take out our frustrations and our just unease in all of these different places. And it turns out to be really unhealthy for so many people. Mm-hmm. If only we had the infrastructure, the systems in place for us to actually thrive and enjoy the lives and be productive citizens, we would be unstoppable.
Well, that's what I try to tell people. Imagine if you process some faulty thinking. Imagine, what life would look like if you work that thing out that's been haunting you for all these years. Like, what would life look like without that trauma? Some people can't even see it.
I'm telling you, it's like, I don't know. I'd skip through fields. I don't know. Like,
right. But no, this is how I am. Is it?
Exactly.
I don't think so.
No. Like, there's a whole nother life beyond what you can see in front of you. Mm-hmm. And it's just, just the circumstances that people are put in. And I totally believe that. And like we were saying about you, like, just seeing a need, you experiencing it yourself, and going into this industry. In this industry, you are someone who, even though you've been in the industry for a while, you are on the younger spectrum. Yeah. And in an industry where people already have this setup where you're not a thought leader if you haven't been in the in the game for at least 20, 30 years. You have to have a written article, published book, Time magazine type of deal. Like, well, I don't know about Time magazine, but you know what I mean. Exactly. Something out there that, gets people to recognize you as a leader in the industry. How do you combat that? And how do you establish that trust to say, hey, no, I know my stuff. Like, I know what I'm doing. I can do this, and I can bring something new to it. How do you combat that, either with others or within yourself?
I'll say that the best thing that I ever heard before starting and embarking on my own journey, I was sitting with my supervisor, and I was just saying to her, like, I just want to be great. Like, I can see it, and I just need to conceptualize it. And she said to me, well, one, you're already great, but two, what does being great mean? And I'm like, I want to be like you. She has awards and she said, I think that when you start chasing awards and accolades and being acknowledged, that's when you've missed the point of mental health and being a helper. So how do I combat all of that? I stay focused to what my goal is, to what my mission is. People are my mission. And so if I never get recognized, if I never I want the good stuff, I want to be at the Essence Fest, like I want to do all of that. I want to sit on the panel. I want to, but I want that because someone saw value in what I was doing, and that I never strayed from people in my number one goal. That makes sense.
Yes, that does make sense.
Okay.
And that is an awesome piece of advice. And that was actually one of my questions for a little bit later. I didn't tell you about that one, but you've already answered this question before. What was the best or worst piece of advice that you've ever received? And why was it either the best or the worst?
Well, I gave you the best. Yeah. Again, I think the worst was don't have your business in Springfield. I'm telling you, it was like, I'm going to do this in Springfield, and I'm going to do it like downtown, right in the heart where people can access me via the bus. They could walk to me. I'm going to do, and they were looking at it as like, I'm going to get mass health and everything, and I'm still going to be the best, right? And they were like, yeah, that's not it. Like, we're going to go to Long Meadow. And I'm like, yeah, but they got enough of them over there. Like, I don't want to do that. That's good for some people. Whatever it is for you, I just know that I want to be here because this is where I think my mission is. So the worst advice was that I think it was just like it wasn't for them.
And you know what? You follow your own path and you make your own way, and you're going to be successful in your own right, and you will be recognized for it.
Right.
While still talking to the people.
Thank you.
Yeah. And let me see here. What are some ways that people can actually prioritize their mental health? Like, what are just some general ways? I know that when you are working with a therapist or things like that, you'll probably get an individualized plan.
Yeah.
But like, what are some ways that people can actually just practice that?
Yeah. So I think if you're going to take a step in whatever direction you're seeking, is to, access a mental health counselor. Be diligent. Go with the goal that you have set. How do you want this session to end? That's a question I ask everyone when they come in. How do you know when we're done here? Because it helps to see, progress. So I feel this way when I come in, and I know that when I come out, certain things will be different, right? And I go in with a goal that means I'm going to be diligent. And so the way you practice is in between. You are practicing the goals and the techniques, the self-care, all of the things that whatever plan you and your counselor have developed in session, that you try your hardest to carry out throughout the week. Keep your appointments. Value the time that your therapist has in that space. I think prioritizing your mental health means just that. So you have a session, you are diligent about that session. Nothing comes between you and that session, because that's how you're prioritizing your mental health. Because if anything could come in, I'm going to the beach, I'm going to the mall, or when the world opened back up, it was like, the world is back up, right? And so some of my clients are like, yeah, we're gonna do. So what you're saying is that this thing is more important than working your stuff out, or that's what I'm thinking. So help me understand. So again, just being diligent to yourself and the work that you're doing. That's how you prioritize it.
Awesome. Yes, that's very key. You have to be on it. And a part of self-care even is like, okay, this is me. And
right.
This is the time that I set aside for me.
Right.
Because you know what? No one is experiencing this world other than me. And it's what is going to make me happy. So you have to do it that way.
Can't show up for anyone else if you can't show up for yourself.
Exactly. And we have a lot of people have this habit of showing up for everybody, mama, daddy, kids, everybody, except for themselves. And then,
Right.
like, they're like, they find themselves feeling drained, or they
Yeah.
beat up on themselves because, like, all of a sudden they've gone for so long without practicing any self-care. And it's like, where has my time gone? Like, I mean, you got to take the time and just put it first. Say, yep, this is me. This is what I'm going to do.
Right. You can't pour from an empty cup. That's why I like to tell people, and I even ask them, what if you drop dead? What would they do?
Exactly.
You won't be here.
Nope. It's like you would have no more purpose. You'd be looking around like, okay, what's going on now?
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
So.
And I was just asking that question because, quarantine is such a huge thing right now. Like, it's kind of, well, not even a huge thing. It is the thing right now. Like, it's a whole global pandemic. We're all going through it. We're all at home, or at least most of us are at home still, and still trying to put together the pieces.
Yeah.
How has that affected your work? And do you see a shift in people? Do you see a shift in the general public in their attitudes towards their own mental health, or just like, just what everybody's feeling? Like, what is really on people's minds right now?
The shift I have noticed is people have time. When the world stopped, right? Either people's vices that they put in place to avoid that thing that wasn't working for them, that behavior that wasn't working for them, their depression, their anxiety. So the clubs is shut down, so you ain't got that. Your jobs, people work 18 jobs just to not have to face home, not have to face themselves. Anything that kept you from taking care of yourself, you had no more. You had nothing but space and opportunity to deal with you. So I did see an increase of, referrals, to be honest. A lot of people are like, okay, here we go. I need therapy because, one, if it wasn't just due to something before, this is enough to make anybody go crazy. Mm-hmm. I got people from alone in the house that say, it's crazy just being alone all day, all night, and quarantine did that, wasn't helpful for them. I have people who's stuck in the house with 100 kids. It's me, I'm people. People who have to balance, single parents who have to balance working and full-time and with their kids in the house. We had to be teachers in the beginning of this, and we trying to figure out how we're going to go back to being teachers and workers and moms at the same time again. So that is enough for people to say, okay, I need some help with this. How do I get some help with this? I think the shift even in just looking at the mental health carriers for insurance, how they've stepped up and started paying differently and accepting more people into the field and realizing this shouldn't be so tricky to provide for people. It shouldn't be where we get paid less for certain things, just like we're providing a service. We're still here 100%. So I think the shift was when the insurances started prioritizing. I think other people started prioritizing it also. And then again, just the need for help in the pandemic. I've seen a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear about going back out into the world, a lot of fear about, what's just going on. We've seen loved ones pass, people are getting sick. And so there's a lot of apprehension to go, and do things, and whatever the new normal is, I don't know what that is. So
Beats me. We just moving day to day, hour to hour, really, because
what that is.
With one press conference, your whole life could be switched upside down.
There you go.
Okay, well, that is awesome, and I'm thankful for you acknowledging that. And I just want to touch on one last point before we get to our last question, and then we end.
Mm-hmm.
With this, new normal,
Yeah.
right? How is online working for you? How is it more like, like, yeah, is it approachable? Is it comfortable?
Um, so it's a lot of things, right? And my husband tells me two things can be true. So this my makeshift office, if you can just give you a little.
Cute, like you're painting me back.
It came from my actual office. So I moved my things back home because I knew that this was going to be very long term, and it wasn't helpful to continue staying in my office. And so that was a work in progress to have to get over, just finally going out and being on my own and having this space that I was able to provide. I value providing a safe space for people. When they walk into my office, I love to see them like, right, I'm ready. Like, or they walk in like, boom, I'm ready, And then something about the shift in people's comfortability, and when I get on the phone with them or when we're interacting with each other, sometimes my kids are screaming downstairs. Sometimes I have to go out to the car. Sometimes they're driving in their car. Like somebody open the door and like, I'm in therapy. Like, so that is like,
I love that.
it's kind of like the nuances that come with it, and it's a struggle sometimes, but I love the tenacity of my clients and their persistence and willingness to continue the work that they've done. I truly believe in the energy someone has. And so while I can read their faces, unless they try to turn off the video, which I don't allow, I can see it in their faces. But I usually can tell by their body expression, and I can feel, and it helps with, empathizing and validating certain emotions. And sometimes people can hide through, the camera. But for the most part, again, some people can do phone sessions, and I don't really like the phone sessions. I really want to try to be as organic to the process as possible. But that does change things. I would love to be back in the room with clients. And so, mirroring certain things and just putting out good vibes for them.
Yeah, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And do you have any like just lasting advice for those who are trying to be you and who are working to be a professional in this mental health field?
Okay. I'd like to tell the stories again. So I'm going to end with another story. So funny story is last night, I was looking at my resume. There was a certain position I wanted to look into. And my husband looks at me and is like, why haven't you updated that? Like, what in the world is that? And I'm like, well, it's my resume. He's like, I'm sure you've done way more than that. Like, where's your receipts, girl? Right? Like, and I'm like, what? And so he takes my computer. He's like, send me this, and this right now. When he read, after I looked at it, I said, who are you talking about? Who's that? Because again, when I'm talking is, what I'm talking about anyway is when you're true to what you're supposed to be doing, you forget. I mean, I wasn't even thinking, right? And so like sometimes my little imposter syndrome speaks out. So believe in your capabilities. Believe in the possibility, of being whoever it is that you want to be. Know that you can, and you have all the tools right now in your toolbox to become whoever you want to be. I wouldn't even just say me. That was the first step I had to take. I had to give myself permission to be wellness for the culture, to be an entrepreneur, to be successful, to establish, my presence in a community. That was difficult. I had to get outside of myself. So granting yourself permission, I think, is the best piece of advice I can give someone, and believing in your own worth and your capabilities.
Great. Thank you, Whitney. Thank you for coming and sharing your wisdom. That
Mhm.
was an awesome piece. And it's just a great way to close out. Welcome to the She Did That family.
Yay!
Yes. And I hope to keep in contact and hope to keep you in and around the brand and making these things happen. And just for the last, quick thing in the end,
Mhm.
please tell us where we can find you, all of that good stuff so that people can connect with you.
Of course. So again, I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Psychology Today, wellnessfortheculture.com. I'm also hosting a series this week on Instagram and Facebook called Self-Care via Self-Love. I just uploaded the video while we were actually chatting.
Oh, you
There's
did.
giveaways. So that's a series it'll be posted forever, so whenever this releases, people can go back and take a look. I hope to continue doing these events in the community. Look out for me. I have a book. It's on Amazon.
Oh my God, what's the title of the book?
Oh, what's the matter with you? With my name, spin on the name. It's about just my own journey through mental health and how I use my own coping skills to get through it with a touch of humor and imagination. Just a funny way to get through it. So I think people who go through the worst things in life come out with a strange sense of humor. So about certain things. Again, so wellnessfortheculture.com. That's how you can find me.
Awesome. Thank you, Whit. Thank you for joining us. And I
Having me and keep remembering me. I appreciate it.
of course.